Hi everyone, I'm Steve Hui. I'm the founder of iFlyFlat. Here for another week of the PointsTV, and today is Thursday, 11th November 2021. Hosting the show today because Lockie's away. But first I want to just take a moment to remember, because today is the 11th of November. Lest we forget. And by the time you watch this video, hopefully you've observed your own minute silence. We've got quite a bit to cover this week, and so I'll speed through it and I'll keep this under 14 minutes. Heaps of things in travel are happening, but it's so confusing. So I found this site that Flight Centre Travel Group has put together where you can put in where you're going, what connections you've got, what type of passport you've got. And what they've done here is they've collated all the different travel restrictions, quarantine, testing requirements, depending on what route you're flying, all that sort of stuff. And it keeps changing. So I'll recommend you bookmark this, and I'll include this in the links below. But I found this website super, super useful. And I'll show you how it works. So for example, let's just say you're doing a one-way trip, obviously from say Sydney, and you're going to, say you're going to London. You pick your airport from here, LHR. Here is quite interesting. You can put your connection, and depending on where you're connecting from, and obviously depending on which airlines, say you're flying Singapore Airlines and you're connecting through Singapore. So you put this information in, Sydney to London via Singapore. You put your passport in. I'm thinking probably Australian. When you're departing, say on Saturday, you click see restrictions, and it will tell you, it will gather all this stuff. So basically what it's saying here is, no, you can't exit without proof of full COVID vaccination. If you're unvaccinated, you can't travel without an exemption. The transit is allowed through Singapore airport. So that's information there. You've got to do a mandatory COVID test. So this is all the information about how many days before you can do, and these are the documents you need. So basically, this is a super useful information, always updated. So I would say, check this out because there's heaps of information required. So this is just an example. And actually here it shows you what you got to do between Sydney and Singapore, and Singapore to London. Let me just double check that this was actually, yeah, SGP, cool. So check this out, very, very useful. And still in the land of admin, if you're trying to come to Australia, obviously still use this service from Flight Centre, but the Australian Government Health has all this information about leaving Australia, coming to Australia, all the different types of identification you need, all the steps, all the testing you need. So what type of vaccines, TGA approved, all that sort of stuff. So please check this out if you're planning on traveling real soon, because this will trip you up if you don't have this in place. Obviously, your travel agent will help you, but I'll always say you should check this out yourself because you don't want to be stranded at the airport. I also came across this PCR test. So one thing I want to point out is some people are confused between the PCR test and the antigen test. So antigen tests you can get from supermarkets now, but they are not accepted for travel. What you need is a PCR test, and the PCR test, you need an actual email with a QR code on it. You can't just show a PCR test where you get an SMS saying you're negative. You actually have to get one which you can print out. So this company, I'm sure there's plenty of companies. I just came across this company where you can get a PCR test at the airport, but you got to get this test the day before you travel. You can't just rock up at the airport on the day of travel and get it. So once again, please check what you need to do, because even though this is a 1 hour result time, you can't get it on the date of travel. Like you can't just turn up on check-in day, get a test and fly. You'll be in trouble. a piece of good news is I read this article that Brian Chesky from Airbnb talked about, and he says this is now Australia set to enter a golden age of travel. And I truly believe this. One of the key things is that there's been a major shift between business travel and leisure travel. And I think we saw elements of this when we're talking about this term called biz leisure, where people on business trips are tacking on leisure trips on the same trip. And the fact that we have this idea called a great resignation, and people are now choosing more lifestyle, that I think travel will be a major sort of influence and impact on our lives. So this article in Australia, I thought was pretty cool. There's going to be a major trend to live anywhere, and not just travel anywhere, but tens of millions of people are going to find they can live anywhere in the world and work anywhere, as long as they've got internet access. So I fully agree with that we are entering a golden age of travel, which is very, very exciting. For this week's tip of the month, I want to come back to the value of points, because that's become a really common question that the media is asking me about sharing points tips. And one of the most important things I help people understand is, what is the value of their points? You got frequent flyer points sitting in your account now. Hopefully you've checked the balance. So my previous tips were, make sure you check your frequent flyer points balance, because you need to make sure that they're not expiring. You need to understand how many points you've got. And then you times that by how many cents they're worth. And all, depending on what you do, they're worth different cents. So if you use them to get gift cards, each point's worth only half a cent. So not something I would recommend. If you get them to do points plus pay, which is redeeming any flight with points, you get about 0.7 of a cent. You can also get about 0.7 of a cent if you're redeeming points for any luxury escape deal now. So it used to be 0.5, but now they've increased it to 0.7. So they're getting you much more value. So that's luxury escapes. That's okay use of points, but you're going to get much more bang for buck when you start using points for flights. So using points for economy flights get you about 1.5 cents. Using points for business class and first class, that's when you're getting real bang for buck. You're getting 3 to 4 cents in value. And when I talk about 3 to 4 cents in value in business class, what do I mean by that? I mean by how many points are you swapping for the value of that ticket. So for example, Sydney and Melbourne business class return on Qantas, they sell that ticket for about 1,850 bucks. But if you had 37,000 points, you're swapping those points for basically just under 2,000 bucks of value. So you're getting 5 cents of value per point there. But when you're flying international, business class return ticket to London is about $8,500. Could be about $10,000 at the moment. Qantas charges 289,200 points to swap, to redeem for that ticket. So then that getting about 2.9 cents per point. So that's when I talk about cents per point. So if you think of cents per point as worth 3 cents each, times that by how many points you've got in your account now, and that'll give you an idea of how much travel money you've got, how much business class ticket value you've got, which I think you'll be surprised. It's quite a lot. And coming to hotels, hotels are now starting to have sales. And I came across this one, which I would like to mention. Hyatt Hotels in Australia have got what they call the deal of the decade. What it means that if you stay 2 nights or more, you enjoy 1 night free. And basically, if you stay 2 nights, 1 night free, that's basically means half price. So they've got a whole bunch of properties in Australia: Park Hyatt, Sydney, Melbourne, Hyatt Regency, Sydney, Brisbane, Canberra, Perth. I've checked out a few of these. I've checked out the Park Hyatt, I've checked out the Hyatt Regency, and it's true. Stay 2 nights, get 1 night free, basically becomes half price. Check it out. You got to book before the 16th of November, and you got to stay before 30th of April. So, potentially is a quick staycation, but they're non-refundable and must be prepaid. So the A380, Qantas has bought back the first A380 for about 500 days since they put it away into deep storage, which is a really exciting event because the A380, if you've ever been on the A380, is such a massive aircraft, got so much space, and is so smooth. Like if you remember the taking off process on the A380 is so smooth, you hardly even know that you're in the air, except the fact that if you look outside, you're over the water or you're flying over Sydney. So I'm really happy that A380 is back in the air. Very lucky that I was invited to go to Hangar 96 at Qantas to welcome this A380 that actually flew 19 hours from Germany on a direct flight to Sydney to sort of celebrate the arrival. So super, super cool. There's a whole bunch of people. You can actually sort of spot me here in this photo in the ABC News, waving my flag. So I got to take some of my own photos. So just to see this sort of magnificent aircraft up close, because normally, of course, when you're catching a flight, you go into the plane, but this is the chance to really just witness the sheer scale and the beauty of this aircraft. So got a bit of a speech, understood that they took about 4,500 hours to make this plane ready and airworthy to fly back to Sydney. And whilst it's here, it's going to go through even more maintenance checks. They replace the landing gear while in Germany, new tires, new brakes, whole bunch of stuff. And they're going to have this ready for crew training. And then this will be one of 2 A380s, which will take to the skies in April next year to fly between Sydney and Los Angeles. But they might bring it back earlier on some domestic flights as well over Christmas. Also got a photo with the big boss. So that's pretty cool, no? And also, yesterday I recorded a podcast with Samantha Dybac. She's the managing director of the PR Hub, just to share my journey, talk about PR, talk about I fly flat, of course, and frequent flyer points. So that will be out soon. I'll keep you posted of when that rolls out. It's a very good podcast to listen to. So if you are not already a listener, go check out Influence Unlocked by Samantha Dybac, and she interviews a whole heap of very influential people, and I've listened to a few, and I've got some good tips out of it. And lastly, I do want to thank you. We're still supporting Little Wings. We got a $10,000 target. We still run a few more masterclasses. We've reached just under $6,400 with a whole bunch of donations by various people. So basically, the idea is that if you want to support Little Wings, you want to support I Fly Flat, let's help us get to this $10,000 target by Christmas. So therefore, we can support and fund more flights to help Little Wings. And what Little Wings does is they help fly seriously ill children in regional New South Wales, rural New South Wales to Bankstown in order to get sort of medical care. If they didn't have this service, they'll probably have to drive 9-10 hours by car, or the parents have to drive back and forth in order to get the treatment. So this is actually really important. Well, I've spoken for about 14 minutes. That's it. So till next week, thanks very much. This is Thursday, the 11th of November, Points TV. I'm Steve Huey. I'll catch you next time. Bye.